Hey guys, it's Lucky One. I am parsing out this statement that Sean Spicer did in the press conference. There's a lot of hidden message in the words that he used, and I'm going to show you what they mean, what is going to happen, and why we know that this is going to happen. Okay, so listen up and just watch. Just be patient with me. You'll see it all. And no, I'm not twisting his words. They're twisting the meanings. Okay, so watch this.
And then on Russia in particular, look, I think that if you look at the countries that are with us, it speaks pretty loudly the number of countries that have stood shoulder to shoulder with this president. Russia, on the other hand, stands with Syria, North Korea, and Iran. I think when you contrast the two groups of countries sets, it's pretty clear that we're on the right side of this issue.
But does that mean we're going to commit troops? I mean, they're
no. What it means? No. What it means is that I think the action that we took last week has been widely praised domestically and internationally as a great step to ensure the deterrence and proliferation of chemical weapons and of action against innocent people. When you watch babies and children being gassed and suffer under barrel bombs, you are instantaneously moved.
A coalition, or
I think we have a coalition. I mean, again, I think if you look at who's not with us, it's a pretty small group, and not a group that too many people are looking to bring on board. I mean, you've got Iran, Syria, North Korea, and Russia on one side of this. That's a pretty small group.
President Trump has spoken out extensively about the crimes of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Does the president consider Assad a war criminal? And does he believe Assad should eventually appear before the ICC?
I think right now the focus is twofold. One is defeating ISIS, and the second is creating the political environment necessary for the Syrian people to have a new leadership there. I can't imagine a stable and peaceful Syria where Bashar al-Assad is in power. Creating the environment for a change in leadership.
Does the president believe Assad has committed war crimes?
I think that there's a court that decides those things, and obviously there's a reason that clearly the actions, when you take an action against the people that he has, and I think we feel unbelievably confident in the intelligence that we have. But again, that would be something for a court to decide. Yeah, I think the Trump doctrine is something that he articulated throughout the campaign, which is that America's first. We're going to make sure that our national interests are protected, that we do what we can to make sure that our interests, both economically and national security, are at the forefront. We're not just going to become the world's policeman running around the country, running around the world, but that we have to have a clear and defined national interest wherever we act, and that it's our national security first and foremost. Of the use or spread of chemical weapons of mass destruction, the proliferation of those, the spread to other groups, is a clear danger to our country and to our people.
Saying about Bashar al-Assad, are you saying that defeating ISIS and getting Bashar al-Assad out of power through a political process should happen at the same time?
I think, I'm not trying to how you sequence them, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think that you have to do one other than others, but I think they kind of go hand in hand. As you reduce ISIS's strength, as you de-escalate the conflict in Syria, the political environment to remove him becomes stronger and stronger.
And just to be clear, Secretary Tillerson over the weekend said we can navigate a political outcome in which the Syrian people will determine Bashar al-Assad's fate and his legitimacy. Nikki Haley seemed to align more with what you were saying. She said in no way do we see peace in that area with Assad as the head of the Syrian government. So who better reflects the
I don't think those are mutually exclusive statements. Because the goal for both of them, the goal for the United States, is twofold. As I've stated, it's one, to make sure that we destabilize Syria.
The U.S. should consider sharply escalating the pressures against Assad through covertly orchestrating simultaneous military threats against Syria from 3 border states hostile to Syria: Iraq, Israel, and Turkey. Iraq, perceived to be increasingly desperate in the Gulf War, would undertake military air operations against Syria with the sole goal of opening the pipeline. Although opening war on a second front against Syria poses considerable risk to Iraq, Syria would also face a two-front war since it's already heavily engaged in the Bekaa, on the Golan, and in maintaining control over hostile and restive population inside Syria.
Destabilize the conflict there, reduce the threat of ISIS, but then secondly is create the political environment, not just within the Syrian people, but I think you can have work with Russia in particular to make sure that they understand that Syria, backed up by Russia's own accounting, should be held accountable for the agreements that it's made with respect to its international agreements on chemical weapons alone.
And can you defeat ISIS with Assad still in power?
ISIS with, yes. Like there's a single track that says you have to do. I mean, if we can get both at the same time or one happens after another, that's fine as well. But I think that we obviously the number one threat that America faces is ISIS in that region, and we've got to make sure that we do everything we can to do that.
And just finally, when Secretary Tillerson meets with his Russian counterpart, what is the specific message going to be? Is he going to threaten potentially more sanctions if Russia doesn't get involved?
We need to remind them of the commitments that they've made.
How far is the president willing to go to see Bashar al-Assad out of power there?
You can't imagine a stable and peaceful Syria with Assad as in charge. I don't think that's a scenario that's possible. And as ISIS is proliferating and chemicals of mass destruction are on the rise there, we've got to contain that. Then once that's done, I think we can apply political, economic, and diplomatic pressure for regime change. The answer is that if you gas a baby, if you put a barrel bomb in to innocent people, I think you will see a response from this president. That is
involvement last week. You said in your statement that all 59 of those cruise missiles hit their intended target, and yet we're seeing reports that that military airbase in Syria continues to be used by the Syrian military.
Yeah.
Given that, how can you consider that particular mission a success?
well, because I think from what you're hearing, you've taken two pre-fueled planes and taken them off. It's a PR stunt. The bottom line is their fueling capability has been taken out, their radar capability was taken out, and over 20% of their fixed-wing aircraft from their entire Air Force was taken out. Their ability to operate successfully out of that airbase is gone. Like I said, they as a PR stunt, they took some pre-fueled planes, pushed them over to make it look like nothing is. But make no mistake about it, their radar capability is gone, their fueling capability is gone, and a good chunk of their aircraft is gone. Secondly, to your point, I think the staff said it over the weekend, I'll reiterate it, the only thing that's being shaken up in Washington right now is Washington. I think this president continues to show that he's going to be a disruptor and do things differently and bring real...
The previous administration was in touch with the Assad opposition and gathered conclaves of different groups, including the Free Syrian Army. Is this administration in touch with the same anti-Assad forces, political and military?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into details on what we're doing and who we're talking to. I think that's obviously didn't prove too successful last cycle, last administration in terms of regime change. So, Melanie.
In 2013, Mr. Trump, as a private citizen, had a lot to say about Syria. One of the things he said that the president, then President Obama, needs to see congressional approval. Some members of Congress believe he should as well. What is his plan to explain his strategy in a broader sense, and why does he not need congressional approval in his view?
I think Article 2 of the Constitution is pretty clear that when it's in the national interest of the country, the president has the full authority to act. He did that. He and his team spoke extensively to congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle that night to describe the action that's being taken forward. So I think we have fully fulfilled every obligation, but the power vested in Article 2 is very clear with the president's ability to act.
In terms of things happening here at the White House behind the scenes with his staff members, obviously there were some ideological and policy differences on this particular military action last week. Does the president believe, or do you believe, that this has been smoothed over in the short term, or there has been a long-term solution to the fighting between Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, and others?
Are you talking specifically with Syria, or are you talking...
Specifically with Syria, there was a disagreement, but is this a short-term fix to this problem, or do you believe, does the president believe, that there is a longer-term fix this infighting that has really plagued his administration?
Well, again, I'd say a couple things, Jeff. One is a lot of this is frankly overblown. But number two is the reason the president has brought this team together is offer a diverse set of opinions. He doesn't want a monolithical kind of thought process going through the White House. He wants a diverse set of opinions.
So there you have it, folks. You know that we've been planning on invading Syria and destabilizing it and breaking it up all this time. It's been a fact since Assad's dad was in office, and they plan on doing it for the oil. And Trump just seems to be just another one of them, because he totally flipped on his base support, and I don't support him anymore. This is a slap in the face. This is like, you know how Americans, how we have married couples and the wife gets beaten for the first time by her husband, her abusive husband, after they get married and everything seems nice and lovely, and the first time she gets slapped? Well, this is what the alt-right is acting like now. We've just been slapped. We've been betrayed. That's it. So stay tuned to Quantum Connections. We are live Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time now. And we will see you on Tuesday. I love you. Find your Quantum Connections at truthfrequencyradio.com.